Hello, everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss the role of theory in research. Understanding how to find and integrate theory into your research studies will greatly help strengthen your paper, and it will also provide a solid foundation on which your paper can stand. Let's start by defining what a theory is. So, in general, a theory is a set of interrelated concepts and propositions that help explain or predict phenomena. It gives a framework to understand the relationships among the variables or a model for us to help us understand the relationships. And it guides the exploration of a phenomena. So, a theory is not just a fancy idea that we add to research. It's actually a very important part of structuring our study, and it also helps guide us in approaching our research and in understanding how the variables in the research are actually interrelated. So let's talk first now about some distinctions that we need to draw between what a theory is and what a worldview is, just so we would not be confused between the two later on. So, when we talk about theory, we're talking here about a model that provides a specific framework that helps us explain the relationships between variables. For example, like the theory of planned behavior, which is widely used and is widely popular in the field of consumer research. So, in the theory of planned behavior, we can see how attitude, subjective norms, and the perceived behavioral control are all related to the intention of the consumer to either do something or buy something. So, through this theory, we can immediately see how the three, being attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control, influence or drive intention. And so, it would help us understand the underlying factors that motivate consumers to behave the way they do. Worldview, on the other hand, for example, such as pragmatism, is a broader philosophical stance that guides the overall research approach. So, in mixed methods, worldviews often suggest that the problem dictates the methods, and it's not a rigid attachment to quantitative or qualitative paradigms. So, in short, you can think of worldviews as a way to look at the phenomena or a way to look at the entire research that you're working on. So, what does the theory inform, or what are the other parts in the research that the theory may affect? So, the first thing is that it does inform the research questions and hypothesis. The theory helps develop research questions and the hypothesis. And in fact, these two must be grounded in literature. Okay, so research questions and hypotheses necessarily include the variables that are ideally also covered by the theory that you have selected. Next, the theory will also inform your data collection. So, the theory informs the instruments, the research instruments that you're going to use in order to collect data, and as well as the approaches that you will use to gather both the qualitative or quantitative data in the case of mixed methods. Then also the theory informs data integration and interpretation. The theory guides how findings from both strands are combined and how it can be interpreted to draw meaningful conclusions. So, again, the theory here affects your research questions and hypothesis. It will also somehow have an impact on the data collection. And for mixed methods, it will also have some impact on how the data is integrated and interpreted from both strands, being the qualitative and the quantitative. Let's go over the basic procedures for how we locate and include theory in our research. So there are a few key steps that we need to walk through, and these steps will help clarify the process of integrating theory into our studies. First is identifying relevant theories. So, one way we do this is by conducting a thorough literature review. I can't stress enough how important it is to comb through academic databases, journals, and books in the business field to uncover existing theories that are going to be relevant to the research topic of interest. So, if you're in business, which you are, you might look at organizational behavior theories. So, if you're working in education, for example, theories of learning or motivation might be of interest to you, or they might be key. So, remember, you're not just limited to your own discipline. Sometimes the most innovative research comes from cross disciplinary work. So, you can be open to theories from other fields as well. Another important thing that you need to keep in mind is to stay up to date. So it's not going to be helpful for you to select and go with a theory that has been largely discredited or outdated. Okay, so you need to look at the literature and then you can find theories for your own field from the literature. You can also look at other disciplines to find any relevant theories from there. And the last one is to look at updated theories. Now, once you've identified a few potential theories, the next step is to evaluate and select these theories. You're going to have to ask yourself some questions like: does this theory directly apply to my research questions? Okay. Is it relevant to the questions that I am asking and to the variables that I want to take a look at? Does this theory help me explain or predict the relationships among my variables? And most importantly, what kind of empirical support does the theory have? How many other researchers or scholars have used this theory? How widely has it been used? How popular is it? How many people support it? And how many scholars have discredited it or have found some glaring errors in it? So, for example, if you're conducting a study on employee motivation, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a well known and respected theory that can help you in that respect. But is it the best fit for your research context? Okay, so you might want to ask yourself that question. Would you want to go with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or is there some other theory that is more current and that can help you investigate employee motivation by understanding their needs? So you'll need to think critically about which theory best supports your study's aims. After evaluating and selecting your theory, you move on to the next step, and that is integrating it into your research. So, this is where the theoretical framework comes into play. Now, in your paper or proposal, there should be a dedicated section, or in our case, in our template, we have a separate section for you to do that, where you can introduce and explain your theory. You can think of it as the foundation of your study, basically, that section. You will define all key concepts and show how they are connected to your research questions in that section. Now, often we also create a conceptual model, or what we may call as the conceptual framework, which is basically a visual diagram that lays out the relationships between variables, making the theory more understandable. Another important point is operationalizing your variables. So, this means defining exactly how each theoretical concept will be measured or observed in your study. So, for instance, if your theory involves job satisfaction as a concept, how will you measure that? Is it going to be through a survey? Is it going to be through interviews? Or is it going to be observation? Now, let's talk about how theory shapes your research questions and hypothesis. Theory doesn't just sit in the background, it's actively guiding how you frame your study. And it will also actively frame and guide how you come up with your conceptual framework, which is also basically the part of the theory and that you would like to focus on in your paper, but it also includes other variables that may not be found in the original theory that you are using. So, for instance, in the quantitative research, theory is often used to formulate hypotheses. So, let's say you're testing a theory about leadership styles and their effect on employee performance. Your hypothesis may be derived directly from the theory, predicting that a specific leadership style, for example, like transformational leadership, will lead to higher employee engagement. On the other hand, in qualitative research, the theory might guide the types of questions you ask, but these questions are usually more open ended. For example, if you're using a theory like social constructivism, your research might focus on how individuals co construct meaning in a particular setting. Now, once you've collected your data, you're going to use theory to help interpret your findings. In a sense, your theory acts like a lens through which you look at your data. For example, if you're using Herzberg's two factor theory in a study on job satisfaction, your analysis might reveal that employees are highly motivated by recognition and opportunities. And these are things that Herzberg identifies as intrinsic motivators. Your theory will help you explain why certain factors are more influential than others. But remember, theory also leaves room for surprises. Sometimes your findings may challenge or extend the theory. That's part really of the research process. And it's that part that is considered to refine the theory based on new evidences.